Group singing for fun and well-being has been researched by social scientists from a range of disciplines, from music education to medicine, psychology, anthropology to occupational therapy. Research has used scales, virtual reality technology, observation, participant testimony, and biofeedback. The accumulated knowledge confirms what civilizations have known throughout time. Singing gathers people and helps them to feel good or even better. In the modern day, who are the folk that facilitate these groups? This series of podcasts examines that facet of the diamond, singing group facilitation. I'm Belinda Densley, a PhD candidate and a singing facilitator.
Yeah, you've done something very beautiful here. Concentration levels are out of the roof.
I also have a master's in counselling and psychotherapy. I raise this because we're in the territory of safety, expression, interpersonal connection, and personal factors that present in the process of group singing.
Then you know you've got to hold on tight, not let go, you're in good hands. Then you know you've got to hold on tight, not let go, you're in good hands. You're in good hands.
Over the next episodes, I'll be presenting more steps in the process of group singing facilitation and go on to show how beautifully that work aligns with the established principles of therapeutic group work. What I want to highlight is that maybe therapy isn't the correct concept to use when describing the benefits of singing. We'll explore soon another concept known as eudaimonia. In episode 1, we talked about step 1 of the process, advocacy, for singing participation, well-being, community building, and for the role itself of group singing facilitation. In episode 2, we talked about the next step, song curation, which includes song selection, development, framing, and sharing. In this episode, we talk about welcoming and sustaining songful, harmonious expression. It's my version of what is commonly called magic.
Lights will guide you home and ignite your bones.
In the existing research literature about community music, magic features. In the Oxford Handbook of Community Music in 2023, Bridie Lee Bartlett, renowned scholar in the community music field, wisely writes, quote, "Others will say the how relies on a certain kind of alchemy where something magical happens. Of course, in community music, the miraculous and inexplicable does happen. However, one could argue that there is something inherently dangerous about aiming for a social impact agenda and simply relying uncritically on the miraculous." End of quote. In the context of group singing, I'm going to try and break that magic down somewhat. It starts with cultivating safety, it moves to song building, then comes sustaining magic moments, then encouraging connections. Adapting to the group needs is a constant throughout this process. Let's start exploring the magic by looking at cultivating safety.
Well done, everybody. I'm just conscious, I always am, when there's a few people that have never sung one of our songs before. There are a few in the room. So that was the pattern that we just sang there, was the pattern for all of the verses. Do-do-do-do-do-do. I wonder if we could just go back to the top again and collect those people that might have been doing it for the very first time. Here we go.
Holding space and safe space are common and colloquial terms that perhaps mean nothing whatsoever. What they intend to mean is that participants in an environment feel comfortable and not scared. In fact, ideally participants may be energised, motivated, inspired and actively engaged. Singing facilitators talk about the free and fearless space, and this was a concept introduced to me by Faye White, co-founder of the Vic Sings program at Community Music Victoria. Faye learnt the concept from Dutch theologian Henry Nouwen, who coined it in relation to hospitality and particularly in relation to communities established in France for people with intellectual disabilities. The notion captured in free and fearless space is that everyone deserves to be fully themselves without fear of criticism. No one can actually label a space as safe though and expect that that makes it safe. A space is safe when it is experienced as safe by those within it. So facilitators are looking to meet safety needs of individuals, including themselves, as well as for the group as a whole.
Relaxed and free and know that they can make mistakes and not be criticised. And it's not about one person, it's a collective.
I mean, I've facilitated many rooms. Safety's co-created, a space is co-created. I can set things up and someone can come in and suddenly, be a bit disruptive. So it's never a fixed state. Some of the things that I think about happen long before anyone leaves their house. Happens in the nature of the invite. Perceptions about what is going to happen at an event just from the second people see anything about that group or that space. So the kinds of things that you might put on social media, the kinds of graphic design you might use, the wording of the event, the kinds of information that's sent out prior to the event.
I guess the simplistic way of saying it is I've created a space of freedom and fun and joy and music and singing, and people just get that and they just walk straight into it.
This begins with welcoming acts.
I just feel like for someone to really feel like they belong in a group, they need to be noticed and they need to have it acknowledged that their contribution to the whole picture is valued. So I see that as my job, not necessarily to do that all the time, but to lead by example and hopefully foster a sense of that spreading through the group. I'm always saying, being in a choir isn't about meeting your own needs specifically and solely. It's actually, everybody look to your left, look to your right, in front and behind. These are the people you're also here for.
Welcoming acts are words and deeds that acknowledge the values we advocated for in episode 1 and extend personal invitations to people. These invitations are practical and also emotional. A practical example of welcoming relates to participants arriving late.
We're not at all harsh on people when they're late. We understand that women have a lot to do. If they're late, there's complex reasons for that. We're about understanding that women would love to be there as early as they can. Goodness knows they need a place to be and get away and be themselves.
Come in, come on in, oh come on in, come on in.
Welcoming acts include warm-ups, games, play, and invitational language.
The warm-up, so much can happen in the warm-up. We're warming our voices, but we're also doing some yoga. We're also making, won't be funny, eye contact and laughing and poking our tongues out and making weird and wonderful sounds, and that sets the tone for a successful group.
Well, it's creating the environment and the circumstances for it to be able to happen, giving permission for people to enjoy their voices. My Thursday choir can still be very, very shy about, even giving a round a go.
Bele mama, bele mama, yeah. Bele mama, bele mama, bele mama, yeah.
So, like blowing on the coals, obviously they're interested and they want to be there and all that, but come on, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this.
Come on in, yay!
Welcoming acts continue throughout the group singing process. However, they're more essential to the safe establishment of a group at the beginning of a session, and safety is what it is all about. Welcoming acts aren't necessarily active. They can be protective.
So I don't stare at people when I'm teaching a song. Like, I make fleeting eye contact, especially with new people. I'll often stare at the ground. I'll be grinning away and body's going, like a metronome sort of thing, but I'm looking at the ground, using my hand, and so no one feels singled out.
Then warming up the voices, getting the breathing, getting people to actually locate their own breath and their own voice. And that's why I'll do a lot of those warm-up exercises and things. And of course, anything can get institutionalized or concretized. So there's a subtlety about that. Sometimes you don't do it because it's not going to work in this particular group. You pick up that this bunch of blokes are just going to want to go, okay, we warmed up. Just need to clear your throat, fellas, because all this waving your arms around, and it's just this is weirdo stuff. I don't want to be there, So there's horses for courses, but nevertheless, that's the sensitivity you bring to the group.
It's not how we sing, it's how we are being.
On a more personal level, facilitators are acknowledging the vulnerability some, not all, participants may have about singing in a group. This was a hot topic amongst the facilitators I spoke with. In episode 1, we talked about the unique musical experience of singing. It's an embodied act. Singing comes from the lungs, on the breath. It passes through the vocal cords and vibrates in the bony parts of our bodies like the skull and chest cavity. If you've ever tried to sing and hold back tears at the same time, you'll be very aware that singing is an embodied act. it can hurt. But music moves us, so we need to make room in our singing experience to acknowledge the very personal nature of singing and what it can arouse.
For many, many, many people, it's a healing thing. I mean, you know, so many people have been told they can't sing and they shouldn't sing and stand up the back or don't even come as little kids. So a lot of people who are sort of recovering from that kind of abuse.
The space that I'm holding is a space where we can be vulnerable. You know, we were preparing for the Festival of Voices and, you know, 3 of the women in the front row, they're just crying. It's like they're really moved by the content of what we're singing.
In order to engender safety in relation to vulnerability, facilitators spoke about expressing their own vulnerability. The more I spoke with facilitators, the more I observed very involved storytelling and modelling, and that expressing vulnerability is a nuanced art. It can work well or less well.
I think the thing that I find mostly when you're in a room of community people that don't have professional music careers is that they're incredibly nervous and shy, and the thing that I always try and set out to do first is make people feel safe, because they feel they can feel your judgment is going to be a lot harsher than anybody else's, which is not the case. One of the first things I do is say, look, so if you explain your own lack of confidence and your own shyness and your own reticence about being a singer, I think that really helps them to feel like they're being held. And I think that feeling of safety and that feeling of trust is one of the first things that you've got to do when you enter the room.
And I think showing that vulnerability is kind of important, you know, hopefully offering, you know, although you might have experience, they, I think if people that you're working with understand that you're not trying to manipulate and dominate them, you're just trying to work together as a group. I think that's part of creating a safe space and engendering the trust that you ultimately kind of need to be able to give people direction, because if they don't trust you, they're not going to take it.
Authenticity, genuineness, humanness, these were all very important to facilitators, and sometimes personal sharing served that goal. I also had the sense, talking with facilitators and drawing on my experience, that this needed to be finely balanced with maintaining confidence and competence in a leadership role that fosters collaboration.
I mean, 30 years ago, I didn't step into a leadership role with ease at all. I did a fair bit of kind of checking in with people and not stepping into that leadership role. And the choir over the years encouraged me to do that more and more and gave me more and more autonomy. You know, we used to make decisions by consensus sitting around the circle all the time. And eventually they said, could you just decide and tell us? Because, you know, we just want to sing, which of course makes incredible sense because, you know, otherwise it's like any consensus thing. It's just terribly slow, isn't it? 35 opinions is just inefficient in lots of different ways. They want me to be a leader and they want to be told what to do. A lot of the women in my choir over the years have come from highly senior professional backgrounds. And I think it's really nice for them, as it's really nice for me every now and then, to sit in a group and be taught or be led.
The responsibility is actually my responsibility. I'm the singing leader. It's up to me to enable them to participate in that in the way that makes them feel good.
Good. Now we need strong preferences. We need a third of the group to... It doesn't matter if you normally sing the low or you normally sing the high. It's just irrelevant. For this particular piece, did you feel better singing the low, in which case come and stand here? Did you prefer the first one we did, in which case come and stand here? Or did you prefer the high one, in which case stand here?
During the interview process, I noticed that the facilitators absolutely prioritised safety, but they were not always feeling safe themselves. Now, some facilitators do quite a bit of work to address this personally. It's similar to the adjacent but other important role discussed in the last episode of Managing Logistics. Experience and mastery involve taking steps to manage risk for everyone.
I'm here doing a job. How do I keep on doing that? Manage my own emotions and manage that person that's in the room to make it okay for everybody. Really stressful in that situation. It's really stressful to know, how do I take care of myself and take care of everybody in the room? All these different personalities, all these different set of needs that are in the room. Yeah, how do I make myself safe and okay in that room as well?
There's times when I've felt a little bit uncomfortable.
But that is a surprise to me. And as a facilitator, I find that a cause for reflection. This sense of wanting to have unconditional positive regard for everybody. If I find that I don't have that, it bursts my own bubble about who I am.
Kate talks about training leaders in safety from the very beginning.
It's a massive personal journey when you step yourself in the middle of a circle to kind of also be in your voice, in leadership, role modelling, and having all those eyes on you. Yeah, so a lot can come up personally for leaders, and touching on all sorts of things around belonging, good enough, showing off, like all those possible tapes from our own experiences of childhood and growing up. We'll encounter those. We'll encounter those things that we've sit as stories within ourselves. I think a lot of those things when we dare to just put ourselves out there.
Developing facilitator safety is probably a topic from another podcast, but it is important to acknowledge it's relevant. There's plenty of research into interpersonal work in therapy and parenting, for example, that tell us humans are tuned to one another, and a sense of safety and stability needs to be felt mutually. Clear, assertive boundaries are sometimes necessary within the group and outside of it to preserve a meaningful and shared sense of safety.
I think that's the hardest thing, and I've really had to learn to, and then that very fine line between choir director and friend, or choir director and support person, and choir director and buddy, or confidant. It's super grey. It's very different from other workplaces or other environments, but it's also really important.
If I lay here, if I just lay here, would you lie with me and just forget the world?
There are other physical actions facilitators use to cultivate safety. Many facilitators run their sessions with participants in a large circle where everyone is shoulder to shoulder and every person can see every other person. This is an equalising action. It acknowledges each individual and undoubtedly disarms the uncertainty of having someone standing behind you or 2 spots down, as would occur in rows.
Lovely. And if the circle can close up around the outside.
The circle, that's a no-brainer, just because people are going to feel like, oh, I'm part of something, whatever it is.
Cultivating safety is a really important part of the process of group singing. It's continual, yet it's emphasised in the early part of the group singing session, and hopefully also in the communications between a facilitator and participants prior and while they are part of the group.
I am incredibly controlling about comms, because if you misrepresent a workshop, an event, people have all these expectations built up and it's a bit wrong. So in the comms, I like to demonstrate, I've thought about disabled accessibility, I've thought about financial accessibility, I've thought about COVID safety, having all that even before someone's arrived. There's a few messages sent. These people have thought through various elements of what's going to happen in this space rather than just come and sing a song.
We've heard how warm-ups and welcoming acts work to develop safety, and now we talk about the group singing. In the last episode, we heard how songs are curated, selected, developed, framed and shared. Now the group is singing too. Facilitators are guiding the learning of songs. I call it the song building phase.
What we're going to do, it's got room for development too, like those doo-doots can go into 3 parts. Can we please sing a song twice in a row without pausing? When we get to the end, smiling back at me. Oh, and just go back to the top. And I'm just going to see if we can grow a few things as we're on the move. All the stars are out,
all the stars are out and I am fancy-free. There's a crescent moon smiling back at me. I see love in the skies, in the skies, in the skies, in the skies, in the skies. Ba, 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 ba. Fly, wishes want to fly.
There are 3 things that are important to relate about the song building phase. The facilitator sings with the participants. So they demonstrate the song, then they join the singers in song. It's a with activity. Secondly, the song is within the facilitator, being shared from within to the group. This is distinct from when the song is an artefact, a piece of music with lyrics and musical notes, sometimes called dots. So the facilitator generates the song from their own body, and singers commune with that song, building it and changing it. Thirdly, there are many different methods used to teach, share, or build the song. Let's begin by thinking about this sense that the song comes from within or through the singing facilitator.
Flowing from within me like a wave, it stirs a well of sound and it rumbles from beneath the ground.
Well, I think it's interesting because I think the well of sound, it just exists. The laws of physics are the same wherever we go. And so I can conjure the sound and create the wave wherever I am. And it is about how much I can hold in my body, I feel. But I can't really lead people into a really fully relaxed expression, can't hold within my body and within my awareness. It's rare. Sometimes you can. Sometimes you can just go, okay, go. And then you're in it as well. And it's just like, wow, this is amazing. But that startup, it comes from within me and within my capacity.
Singing facilitators use a range of techniques to build the song. It can simply start with, I sing and you sing it back.
They need to be able to somehow describe the rhythm of it and somehow describe the tune. And from there, and know how to sequence it, say I sing a line, you sing it after me. Okay, I'm going to sing the second line, you sing it after me. Now we're going to put them together. All that kind of practical stuff.
And facilitators emphasise momentum here. They are constantly reading the room, assessing for engagement, pace. They're affirming, supporting and encouraging the participants to become comfortable with the song. Materials can assist, such as song lyrics, even if the song is simple to remember, because they can take on the role of providing comfort. Playing an instrument can also provide structure, rhythm and pitch. But this can be different for different facilitators. Each has their own style.
I've developed this technique that I use, which is kind of like a visual representation of the melody. So it's like the notes, but it's not the note, but it's the words written in the shape. I do this because I've found that a lot of people panic when they see music. I don't use bits of paper because I don't want people to be separated by staring down at these pieces of paper. If it's not helpful for you and you pick it up better by ear, or that's what you prefer, just use your ear. This is really just a tool.
Not many people can do both of those things. Musicians who teach. A lot of musicians can play music and perform, but a lot of them can't teach, and vice versa. I feel proud of the fact that I've learned to not only to be a performer at a standard that I feel pretty satisfied with it, but also an effective communicator and teacher and somebody who other people enjoy learning from and spending time with, allowing themselves to be encouraged by and drawn out by.
Facilitators are teaching for a short time how the song goes, and this involves teaching the tune, the timing and the feel of the song. It's guiding participants to listen.
Away under,
away talk over the top. Can you get going really quietly?
away.
This is called the walking song. And sometimes groups do say poems over the top. But maybe, does anyone have a little spot of wisdom they could say over the top?
So I rely heavily on my ear, and I guess that helps me actually, because I'm actually at the same level really as a lot of the people that I work with.
The facilitator is trying to build in the group not just a confident sound in the song, but also a sense of competency. This is important to say. Throughout this series, the belief that everyone can sing and everyone has the right to sing has been emphasised. Vulnerability has been highlighted, and the wounds of past singing experiences where participants have been criticised are fuel for the advocacy of the facilitator. However, this doesn't mean the songs don't sound beautiful.
One thing I won't compromise on is the choir not creating a beautiful sound, because I think we all deserve that. And the skill that I employ is the skill to take people to that place.
I'm gonna veer, make the stormy seas calm and clear. You will front your boat, child, it's time to steer.
Song building is a sub-process of welcoming and sustaining songful, harmonious expression. This sense of harmonious is musical, of course. Facilitators teach or suggest harmony parts, just like they teach the main tune of the song. But there's also harmony happening within and between people.
There's a vivification. People start to become alive in a different way. So convivial, I often put that in my publicity, in convivial company. And conviviality is, I think, the enlivening, vive, come alive. When the songs start to resonate and when people feel they can use their voice without any criticism or judgment, when they pick up the connection between each other, something comes alive. And that resonance, people talk about good vibrations. They're literally true. You're vibrating.
As discussed in previous episodes, processes are not directly linear. Shortly, we'll look at two concepts, adapting and connecting. These are very important to support the overall category of welcoming and sustaining songful harmonious expression. But generally speaking, after cultivating safety and then song building, facilitators strive to sustain magic moments. Let's pick up magic moments in part B of this episode. What are magic moments and how are they sustained?
We're chasing magic, we're chasing magic.